It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to Access Bank today for the UNFPA at 50 High Impact Private Sector Summit. This summit, which is a platform for key players from various private sector organizations and not-for-profits across various sectors of the economy to discuss the best approach in achieving a sustainable population growth. I believe the issues addressed here would go a long way in solving the problems that we're faced, especially in this part of the world. The problem of meeting the increasing needs and expectations of a growing population, while at the same time modifying the current production and consumption patterns to achieve a more sustainable development model and address the links between development and rapid population change. Attaining sustainable population growth remains very central to realizing Africa's aspiration for economic transformation. It is evident that given proper investments, population dynamics would play an important role in facilitating high and inclusive growth and poverty reduction. Indeed, the large youth population, if well harnessed, would spur the continent to greater economic achievements. We cannot have a sustainable planet without stabilizing the population. As human population grows, our demand for resources also grow. Regrettably, the price of all of this growth is paid for by other endangered plants and animals, thus increasing pressures on the planet's resources, contributing to climate change and challenging environmental sustainability. And I believe that is one of the reasons, as well as private sector organizations, that we're quite concerned and that we intervene in various initiatives that are aimed at addressing climate change and ensuring that we protect planet Earth. In today's world, working on the population issue means working against overbearing cultural practices such as the low status of women around the world, gender-based violence, child marriage, inadequate access to sexual reproductive health and rights services, gender disparity in education and technology, and female genital mutilation. It means supporting girls' education and reproductive health, as the denial of rights of women and girls are important factors that significantly contribute to high fertility and population growth. Sustainable development cannot be achieved without assuring that all women and men, girls and boys enjoy the dignity and human rights to expand their capabilities, ensure their reproductive health and rights, find decent work, and contribute to economic growth. Achieving sustainable population growth requires key actions from all aspects of development, focusing on interrelated issues that are most important to increasing investments in youth, most importantly women and girls, driving change and setting us all on the path towards achieving a sustainable population. An improvement in the outcomes of education will be critical to the continent's efforts towards achieving a sustainable population. This serves as one of the most important areas that require strategic investments. An increased investment in education likewise leads to an increase in employability rates. Increased investment in employment is essential. To address this high youth unemployment rates, labor force participation needs to be increased by providing employment opportunities to youth in particular. With high-quality jobs largely provided by the private sector to engage new workforce entrants and increase overall productivity, there is a need for a model change, as young people should be empowered with the necessary entrepreneurial skills to enable them create their own enterprise. As such, governments ought to create conducive political, business, financial, and economic environment by developing and effectively implementing policies that promote flexible labor markets.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I feel honored to be here to deliver this welcome address on this special occasion, celebrating the 50th anniversary of UNFPA, as well as the 25th anniversary of the International Conference on Population and Development, ICPD. I stand here not in the capacity of Commissioner for Health, Lagos State, but as a primary beneficiary of the UNFPA support. Having led the ministry for 3 terms, I can therefore attest to UNFPA's work and achievements in Lagos State and across other parts of Nigeria. I would like to use this opportunity to appreciate UNFPA for its role in supporting the Nigerian government in integrating sexual and reproductive health services, advancing efforts to promote gender equality and addressing gender-based violence, strengthening national policies by providing evidence-based analysis on population dynamics, and investing in adolescents and youth. In 2018 alone, UNFPA provided support in operationalizing 67 maternal health facilities or tents and homes, distributed almost 4,000 dignity kits, reached out to over 78,000 gender-based violence survivors, provided 141,000 females with access to emergency reproductive health kits, and organized a variety of capacity building workshops, ranging from sexual and reproductive health to clinical management of rape. Despite these tremendous strides, urgent and sustained efforts by all stakeholders is required to realize reproductive health rights, critical elements to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. The theme for this event, sustainable population growth, population dividend, and the future of Nigeria and the role of the private sector could not be more apt, considering the fact that we have only 11 years remaining to fulfill these goals. Nigeria has continued to grow rapidly in comparison to many other countries of similar size. According to the United Nations, our current population is approximately 200 million, making us Africa's most populous country and the 7th largest population globally. The population is mostly a young population, as 42.5% between the ages of 0 and 14 years. The workforce, that's 15 to 64 years, and the elderly population, those of them 65 years and above, constitute 54.29% and 3.2% respectively, resulting in a high dependency ratio of over 84%.
Education is very, very important because statistics have also shown that when women are educated, there's a higher chance of them delaying their sexual debut and also delaying the time that they will be giving birth. What that means is that they can invest more time into activities that can lead to economic productivity, and also when more women actually is educated, there's increased productivity in the society as a whole. And also we need to create a level playing field for everyone to understand that they have equal opportunity to achieve development impact. And how can we do that? The only way we can do that is by making sure that private sector, public organization, and civil society are able to maximize the potential of the resources that we have today without us going beyond what we currently have.
UNFPA was actually established initially as a trust fund, not as a full UN agency in 1967. A trust fund is just a fund that people, partners or donors put money into, and the money is used for a particular cause. and that cause was for population activities. And that trust fund was administered by UNDP at that time. 2 years later, the United Nations General Assembly decided by decree that the trust fund will be converted to be a UN agency, a full-fledged UN agency. That was in 1969. And so from 1969 till today, we are 50 years. Initially, people always ask the question, why do we give the abbreviation UNFPA, which doesn't look like United Nations Population Fund? It is because when it was initially established, the name was United Nations Fund for Population Activity, UNFPA. And in 1987, the name was changed to United Nations Population Fund. That is the official name. It's not Fund for Population Activities. But the abbreviation remained as it was initially. So that is it. You can now go. So what do we do? As UN agency, we are the leading agency for sexual and reproductive health issues within the United Nations. We are a global leader when it comes to the right of every woman, every child, every man to enjoy a life of health and equal opportunity. We fight strongly for health issues and gender issues and equality. Okay, so the ICPD, why do we link the ICPD? I forgot to tell you that the ICPD conference that was held in Cairo in 1994 is 25 years today. ICPD, International Conference on Population and Development. That conference is very important for UNFPA because it is a significant landmark to the work that UNFPA do. When UNFPA was created, all government did not agree on the right to decide the number of children that you have. Countries were still deciding for you. They will say, we want you to have 1 child or 2 children or 3 children, and you have to have. If you don't have 5 children that we want you to have, we will punish you by asking you to pay more taxes. That was the policy in those days, very tough. And UNFPA was fighting and said, this is not correct. This is not what we want. And the International Conference on Population and Development marked a significant landmark where 179 countries came together and agreed that we shouldn't focus on demographic target. We should focus on the rights of individuals to decide for themselves and not the government deciding what people should be, how you should decide what you should take and what not to take. That is a significant landmark. And a plan of action was developed. A 20-year plan of action was developed in Cairo. That plan of action was given to UNFPA to actually lead the implementation and rally all partners to ensure that they implement. I'm not very sure that if we take that, it was a very significant, even take it now, 179 countries will still agree. They may disagree, but it was a very, very big landmark that they all agreed that it was the right thing to do.
Thank you very much. What is the concept of sustainable growth? Is the rate at which the number of persons in the country grows, the rate at which it grows, given the area, in order that it does not put pressure on the facilities that we have, the rate of growth. There's also the concept of optimum population. It doesn't really exist. For demographers, it's a concept that does not exist. That is the population that is enough for the facilities or the infrastructure that you have. It doesn't really exist. So let us relate with the concept of, of sustainable development, the population growth, sustainable population growth. That is the rate at which you grow, so that you don't put too much pressure on the facilities that you have. That is the dream. That is the kind of thing that UNFPA as an agency will try to achieve. Let us look at, again, the statistics of Nigeria, maybe a few other statistics. We emphasize some that have been given. And if you see some little differences, don't be alarmed. It's not a mistake. It's to give you, to re-emphasize the need for Nigeria to have a population census and be able to gather data. Some people have accused us, UNFPA, you are giving this figure. We try to give government figure. But you see, the truth of the matter is that whatever you see is projection. It's not the real thing. So depending on the kind of parameters you are using to project, or the parameters you decide to emphasize, the figures will differ from place to place. Nigeria population is growing at a rate of 3.2% per annum. At this rate, the population will double in less than 20 years. So what it means is that in Lagos State, in 18 years, you will double the number of hospitals you have, you double the number of schools you have, you double the number of kilometers of routes that you have, you double, in order for you to remain where you are, in order for you to remain the same way we are today in 18 years. So we can relate with that.
The population of the world has doubled in the last 43 years, moving from 3.6 billion in 1969 to 7.7 billion in 2019. Of the countries of the world, many of them have already harnessed demographic dividend. They are long way ahead. A few countries, mainly in Africa, are still behind and are on the way to harness demographic dividend. Nigeria, for example, got into the track of the possibility of harnessing demographic dividend since 2003, according to a study conducted by the University of Ibadan, and is in that track. A lot more need to be done. The population structure need to change. There need to be more investment in health, in education, entrepreneurship and job creation, and good governance for Nigeria to finally harness demographic dividend in the coming years.
We have a fuller view of how it is with the private sector and how mostly it's not a selfish interest. You have investors who've invested in your business and they want to ensure that whatever you're committing your money to is profitable to the organization. So yes, there's the selfish part of it, but there is also that part that these people who you are raising or who you are contributing to are tomorrow going to be a part of your workforce. And you want to ensure a productive workforce, so investing in them is not a waste. It may not yield immediate dividends, but then you're building for your future, not just your organization's future, but the society's future. And so organizations who want to support any of the development areas can seek opportunities to collaborate with other organizations that are currently doing it and to support more. There's power in synergy. Thank you.
We believe in the slogan that our business can only be as sustainable when we build sustainable communities. And then, because for our business to thrive, these communities need to thrive as well. Because when they thrive, they have a higher purchasing power. They're able to also invest in our businesses. When I sat there and looked at the statistics and the videos that was streaming on the maternal and child health, because that is also a very big focus, which we have decided to intervene from last year. I looked at those women, just like one of the speakers has said, women are the economic multipliers of the society. When you give them little opportunity in terms of investment, you'll be sure that the way they would triple those economy. And then, for every business for us actually, our business is centered more around on women, because there's always one woman that sells a bottle of Coca-Cola by the corner of the street. So if you count the number of distributors we have, you discover that women has actually been pillars of our business. And having been in Nigeria for over 68 years, there is no better investment to make than to support those women. Because we know that when we support them, we are only going to benefit indirectly, and of course, the economy as well. So in terms of investing in health sector, our biggest motivation has actually been to actually identify a social need. So that actually came out of the stories that we've heard. Because imagine those of us in this room, probably we had better access to healthcare. And even people, those of us that have also had a very ugly experience, even when you think that you can afford some basic healthcare system, you discover that sometimes these infrastructures are not there. The capacity development is lacking. So we get there. I don't know how many of us was the question to hear about the Chisom story that happened in Bagada. So this population or this family was not at the bottom of the pyramid. They were not poor. At least they could afford a basic healthcare. Yet she died of a cause that could have been prevented if the actual infrastructure was in place. And then, of course, when we identify this, we try to intervene in this area because this is part of the initiative for us, that some of the initiative we do, yes, directly impact on our business, but this is one initiative because when we look at the statistics and we looked at the figure for Nigeria, being the third most dangerous place to have child birth, it was very worrisome for us. And for us as Nigerians that lead the business in Nigeria, we say that this is the change that we want to drive.
Organizations will have their interest where they want to focus on. But what would really work again is to understand the area and understand what the core need of the people is. You can leverage our solutions, okay? But for us, when we work with non-profits, I'll use as an example. Non-profits and startups are just coming up and they don't have so much of the fund, but they also want to do something that is meaningful, okay? So we have the platform for them to ride on our cloud services, and because they are doing something that is related to corporate social responsibility, non-profit engagement particularly, that comes to them at something that is affordable. But going back to where I started from, the idea is to focus on a need-based approach and not a solution-based mindset. People would have different ideas and you want to tackle different problems. But when you don't get into the place and get your hands dirty, when you don't understand what's really happening in that space, it becomes difficult to be able to come up with a solution that really addresses the problem you're trying to solve. The recommendation I would say is spend some time with the people, work with them, be immersed in their reality, understand what the problem really is, and step back a little to think about your own approach, a very strategic approach. And we are open to that kind of strategic partnerships where we can amplify your voice and also amplify the impact of what you're trying to do.
All right, thank you.
First, let me comment Coca-Cola, Microsoft, and Wando. I've heard things I didn't know you did, and I've learned clearer impact from your work. What we've chosen to do over the last, or actually before forming an organization for 18 years, is to re-engineer society through the mindset of young people. And as an organization, we've been doing that for 14 years. I believe that there is nothing more potent than an inspired, hopeful, and empowered human being. And when you're talking about youth bulge, if you do not have a generation that is self-sufficient and is driven towards self-actualization, the youth bulge will become a burden, and this demographic dividend will only be mere words. 14 years ago, we started something called the Future Awards. It was at the peak of internet fraud in Nigeria. And what we wanted to do was to change the mindset of young people. But we realized that we could do all the conferences in the world, we could go on TV and speak, but peer-to-peer influence and pressure would be more potent in changing them. So we said to ourselves, yes, there are stories of young people doing internet fraud, but we'll find those who were based on their talent, hard work, achieving greatness. Then we will take these young people and put them in all the media, on radio, on TV, and it will become a thing of pride to be young and be an achiever.
reproductive health is something that we should take care of very seriously. I did a movie called Dry, which I used to share awareness about obstetric fistula, early marriage, and some of the consequences that happen, and the need for us to improve our healthcare system. And it's just sad that you find that a woman is trying to give birth to a child and she ends up losing her life. In this 21st century, we shouldn't be having things like that. So it's something that we need to take into cognizance and create the right environment, engage the doctors, engage people. My train of thought is moving in a different direction right now. But I think and the right of a woman to choose what happens to her body is also very important, because you're not the one that's going to carry the baby for her. After me being a mother, after going through what I went through, having my child, I'm like, when you have your child and you're cool, be happy with that, because that same story is not the same story with someone, because your body even changes when you have your first child and when you have your second child. So it's important that women have the right to decide also what to do, but also things that put in place to also caution people, in order to help the value of how will I put it, just caution people on the right things to do. But I think reproductive health in Nigeria should be taken very seriously, and it's important. Thank you very much.
In 2018, Nigeria's revenue was budgeted to be about 7.2 billion or something, or trillion, sorry, 7.2 trillion. Actual revenue, I'm not sure if anybody knows what the actual revenue was 3.9. And so there was a deficit of about 5 trillion that Nigeria had to borrow to fill the gap. And so, if we are in that kind of dire situation, for me, we need to begin to think about quick ways where we are able to empower the population to be able to generate some much needed and quick dividends. Because if we don't, we are in serious trouble. We look at the debt servicing to revenue ratio of Nigeria. It's about 70%, which means that Nigeria is using currently 70% of all the revenue that it is generating to pay debt. So that leaves you to about 30% left. Out of the 30% left, about 90% of that is used to fund recurrent expenditure. And so you have about 10% left for capital investments and developing systems that will generate more funds. And so for me, the question is, where does health come in all of this? When currently the current allocation to healthcare is at 4% and budget performance is at about 60%.
Which is arguable anyway.
Which is arguable because they don't publish it. No ministry is going to publish budget performance for you. Everybody talked about budget allocation. And this is where I begin to see the role of the private sector. Because when you look at the debt to GDP ratio, it's 25%, which means that we have a very viable economy. But the money is not in government. The money is in the private sector. And so how can we begin to develop policies? And how can we as donor organizations and civil societies begin to engage government to influence policies that will facilitate viable PPPs and engender services? If we are able to do that, then very quickly we'll begin to see a population that we are not really bothered about what size it is, but its contribution to economic dividends.
91% of people who visited health facilities did not hear about family planning.
Wow.
91%.
That is
so
huge.
People go for malaria, antenatal, postnatal, every other thing, but they don't hear about family planning. Or when they hear, They hear the myths and the misconceptions. IUDs will travel to the heart, ECs will make you fat, will cause infertility and all that. One other thing that is coming up lately is that we say indicating now the fear of additional school fees is the beginning of wisdom. So the men are calling. They will call you and they will say, please tell me what I can do so that my wife will not get pregnant because I don't want to begin with another school fees, So people are becoming aware. But what is really driving awareness is the need. The average human being doesn't understand unintended pregnancies, maternal mortality, reproductive health rights. Private sector, they don't understand that. It's just big grammar. They just want to prevent a problem from happening. Like if you're in traffic, I remember when Amarachi was saying, in traffic you become hungry. You don't start saying, oh, I need to replenish the nutrition that I have lost from it. That's not what you do. You just say, I need gala. And then you pick a gala, you solve a need. That's how it is in the private sector.
So as we continue to grow at whatever rate we're growing, we need to invest in demographic dividends to be able to harness the very many opportunities that our population offers us as a nation. So we need to invest in the majority of our population, which is the youth category, and help them, to be able to contribute to Nigeria's growth and sustainable development.
So how does the private sector come in? That's where you belong.
Yeah, so it's really, private sector has a lot of resources, financial resources, human resources, the skills, the expertise that is required. And so really we won't go far if there is no partnership with the private sector. So it's important that we engage in public-private partnerships, and of course working with multilateral agencies like the United Nations agencies.
Everybody in this room may be a reader of a newspaper. At the same time, you are a buyer of a product, you are a shareholder in the company, and so on. You go to the AGM, the MD says to you, we spent the last money to set up the in partnership with UNFPA, and you say, what is the dividend? So we need to find a way where this makes sense to all parties. And this is what we say. For us, it is a mathematical formula. Given that A is this, B is this, C is that, how do we find X? But we must first define what is X. We don't have a definition. We have 111 women who die at childbirth. It's sad. Where do we want to go to? What is the next milestone? What are we aiming for? Where are these women? We treat sometimes everything as if the culture is similar. Nigeria is a multicultural environment. You sit down in Lagos, you say a lot of things, it makes so much sense. Just stroll to Shagamu.
It's a different story.
Don't even put out to the parts of the country where some of us are from. Stroll down to Shagamu. It's a different. So we need to find a way of taking our messages and making them culturally relevant. Before is an emergency. Can we develop a plan and go into communities to teach this and say, what are the cultural practices holding this community back in the respect of this? And we sit down with them 3 months at a minimum. Because culture is not quick and culture is not cheap.
Behind every statistics is a human life. So when you hear that 10,000 women die of this, 10,000 girls does not have access to this, what that potentially means is that there are technically 10,000 people who have the opportunity or the potential to improve our economy, but if we don't invest in them, we will lose that potential. And that's what we realized early. The issue of family planning, investment in young people is not a health issue, it's not an economic issue. It's a human issue. And if we don't address it squarely, then there might be potential threats to us economically, socially, and even environmentally. And that's why our approach at AC Health Initiative is an integrated approach that has health, economic empowerment, and rights. Because we believe that there's no singular approach that can guarantee to improve the health and productivity of young. It's easy for government organizations to only think that private sector want profit. Sometimes some of their investment does not necessarily have to translate into direct profit. But there is a need to show data and build evidence for scaling up and sustainability, which some private sector organizations like Axis Bank have done very well over maybe 10 years period. Last year they celebrated that 10 years of championing sustainable development, which is a good one, which is a good template that private sector, public sector organizations should understand. Language is key. When you come to these people and say, oh, we understand that it's only profit you want. No, you don't understand. The conversation has changed. And then also the way you see public organization or the way you see young people, it has changed. Young people are digital natives. They have technical competence more than any generation ever. So we should know that what they are bringing to the table is beyond the fact that, oh, they are young, we just want to add them so that they won't say we are not putting young people. It's beyond that.
I did the movie Dry, and it's been quite impactful in Gambia. When we screened it, they banned child marriage in Gambia. Like Mr. Eugene said, I just got back from Sokoto because I felt if people don't change their minds, if people don't change their behaviors, if people don't look into the cultural practices and said what is working and what is not working, what has kept all this far, if people don't do that, that's why when Adaman was talking about the media, it's so important. And even all this government, you're telling me about scheme insurance, even me, I don't even know insurance. I'll go to the hospital, they say, what insurance do you have? I'm confused. So information does not pass down to the government. Government are doing things for themselves. So you just say in Oreo that they're doing it like they understand, but it's not trickling down. They're not taking effort to break down information. So that is the thing. If you have a plan, you have a project that you're doing, are you breaking down this information so that even someone at the club will know this is my rights, this is how I can get help, this is what I should do? We don't even know it. So now to talk about the other things. So whatever project or whatever things they were trying to do, both in the private sector, both the one you're doing, the initiative you're doing and all of that, I think is necessary, because you're just telling us, a lot of people don't know. It's something that you need to blow it out. And that's where using people like us, and that's where using the media, and that's where using the social media, where all these young people are, and break down the information. This is your right, this is what you should expect, this is the thing. So by the time people become aware, they start saying, oh, I deserve better. They start asking questions. They start demanding. Government start shooting. This will start adjusting. I think when we do all of that and start changing our mindset and start knowing as a people that we deserve better in this country, we're not going to go anywhere. Is it surprising that when you go to outside the country, Nigerian doctors are one of the best? Because they've put in a society that is working. So what is the rocket science that we can in 21st century where knowledge is at its cheapest? Knowledge is so cheap, meaning that you can sit down in one place and get access to anything happening around the world, and you're telling us that we cannot change our medical system. We cannot change it. I think it's time for action. That's me. I'm more like an anxious person that let's not stop speaking this English. If you know how you want to make it work, break it down, get everybody, let's make it, put it in your hearts that first of all, I deserve better. Then it's so funny that my child, they took lights and I said, mommy light. I said, oh my God, there's no electricity. And it struck me like there's another generation coming and we still do not have light in Nigeria. What are we doing? So this boy will come and look at me and say, mama, you failed us. Just like we're telling our parents, mama, we failed us. So it's not about castigating or putting any blame, because it takes all of us, the government, you as a parent, even women, this women empowerment. Women, you're not helpless. I don't do women where it's a women empowerment. Women, you're so strong. You're the one just allowing the things happening to you happen to you. And most of all this cultural, because you are the one who stays with your child, both the male and the female. Whatever you want to instill in them, it starts from you. So you're not that helpless. So even some of the cultural practices, FGM, is even the women that carry it on top of their head. And the men will not be wondering, so what are people feeling helpless for? Do what is needful, arrange your family, demand better. If you say it will not happen to me, your child who is looking up to you say, my mama did not take this nonsense, I will not take this nonsense. So it keeps going down. That's what I feel. So it's all hands on deck, and if anything we need to, please let's put the information, let people know what they're supposed to know, and so that we can all, practice and get ourselves involved in some of the things that we're supposed to do, so that we can have a better life for ourselves in Nigeria. Thank you.
I'll just highlight about the three commonest causes of maternal death from the reviews that we've had. The first that will come to mind, of course, is bleeding after pregnancy, within the first few days after pregnancy. Usually this bleeding is due to either the woman pushing before she's fully dilated, or there's a low-lying placenta and she's not aware, and she tries to push against the placenta and then she starts bleeding. Or it may be because the uterus is just not contracting after delivery. Maybe she's had several deliveries, and with each delivery the elasticity of the uterus reduces, and usually we advise mothers not to have more than 4 children, because after the 4th, that pregnancy is classified as likely to have complication.
Any organization that operates in a place or a community or in society is not in isolation. And because you have the social license to operate, for you to retain that social license, you need to intervene in the social issues around you. Okay, health therefore being one of the key social issues, because just as an example, as a financial services provider, if everyone is dying because of lack of access to quality healthcare, who are you selling your financial products to? Who is there for you to provide your financial services to? Okay, so it is critical for any organization to be involved, right, in issues around healthcare, just as an example, as we're discussing today. Now, with respect to Access Bank, in 2015, June to be specific, Access Bank launched what is known as the Maternal Health Support Scheme, MHSS. And the aim of MHSS was to provide access to primarily fertility treatments for families. Now, you know that fertility issues are not just women issues, right? There are families you find out that is the man that has the challenge. Okay, so primarily to provide access to quality treatment on fertility issues, and secondarily to provide access to good quality procedures, be it natal support or be it surgeries for babies, hole in the heart, and all of that.
Now, as far as WHO is concerned, and that's my own viewpoint, and that's the viewpoint of our society, the only place for the TBA in the scheme of things is to serve as referrals. For example, your state has a program, and I think that's what we should probably embrace. For each patient, pregnant woman you bring to a government health center, primary health care center or general hospital, you get compensated, like 8,000 naira. Ondo State government has done it. I've been an advocate that TBAs should be outlawed. They should be outlawed. But the former commissioner for health in Lagos State don't push most of this happening. It's not. It's the whole opinion is this. There are some hard to reach areas like in the Bedulek. There are some areas in the Bedulek. Once it's 6 o'clock, the woman cannot get to hospital. You won't find the vehicle, either Okada or whatever form, to take that woman to hospital. That's what happens in that kind of situation. And the TBA is there. So, but you see, we must find a solution to this problem.
So, but we just don't sit to talk. we had conversations, and conversations that would lead to key outcomes. So I will just read out what the call to action is for every private sector organization that was here present today, and other participants from also civil society organizations and government. On the occasion of the UNFPA 50 years celebration and ICPD 25 years celebration, Private Sector Summit, which is the name of the event. We, the participants, representing public, private, and civil society organizations, call on the private sector in collaboration with government and development partners to take the following actions. Number 1, in carrying out corporate social responsibilities, ensure partnership with civil society organizations and participatory needs assessment of target groups to provide the relevant sync between the company's activities and achievement of the sustainable development goals. If we agree, let's clap for that. Number 2, recognize the potentials of young people and harness the strength towards sustainable development through mentoring and more internship opportunities. Number 3, use goodwill with government parastatals and political contacts to ensure that there are reviews, amendments, and implementation of laws that pertain to women, youth, and for poverty eradication to ensure attaining the SDGs. Give consideration to employing women in workplaces and giving them equal opportunity to rise, to management levels, and support their maternal needs during and after pregnancy. Finally, that we will continually provide a forum for private partnerships to drive conversations around. Thank you.
It's been a very, very wonderful time. I want to thank God for making this day a possibility at last. We've put a lot of planning and thought into what we did today. And at last, we've been able to achieve it. And not without you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience, for your contribution. It's been very, very engaging. And I'm particularly thrilled about the call to action. Mrs. Omobonale, thank you very much. That you are taking the lead, in fact, it encourages us. And all the things listed there, in fact, are just wonderful. I shouldn't end this but without saying that where Access Bank indeed have been very, very supportive. They took the initiative to sponsor this event. I want to believe that that's the beginning of kind of partnership that Access Bank is leading. I'm hoping and believing that other corporate organizations here will just follow suit. In fact, the work that Access Bank is doing in the areas of reproductive health is just amazing. And I want to commend you for what you're doing. I want to believe that we have not only celebrated our 50th anniversary and the 25th of ICPD, we've also been able to sensitize you about issues that we need to think about, that we need to take action about. I'm happy about all the contributions from the panelists, from the different sectors. It all shows that we are all focused in the same direction. We are thinking about the same things, and we are offering solutions. Sometimes to get a big impact, we need synergy. And I want to believe that since we are all thinking in the same direction, we'll begin to form synergies. Synergies between the private sector, synergies between the UN and the private sector, synergies with government, so that, at the end of the day, what we will reap will be much bigger than what our dreams are. So on behalf of my head of office, Dr. Ojin Konji, I want to thank you very much. Please don't be annoyed if some of you corporate organizations begin to see us, knocking on your doors, asking for a kind of partnership for a better reach and a greater reach. Thank you very much. God bless you.